knows what tomorrow brings? I'm never gonna kiss and tell. I just wanna have fun. Show me what you got, 'cause the floor is getting hot. I wanna see the way you move. It's time to get it on, gonna party all night long. This is what we do. La 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 la, I'm all about. Come and get it, come and get it. La 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 la, I'm all about. Come and get it, come and get it. I wanna dance the night away until we see the light of day. Come give me some. We're never gonna stop, 'cause we never get enough. We burn till we're out of time. And when we get to the end, we're gonna do it again. 'Cause tonight is when we come alive. I just wanna have fun. La 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 la, I'm all about. Come and get it, come and get it. La 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 la, I'm all about. Come on. Come and get it. I wanna dance the night away until we see the light of day. Come give me some.
Don't you wanna come? Don't you wanna come? Don't you wanna come alive?
Whoa, oh, oh, all about the fun. Yeah, yes I am.
Come and get it, come and get it.
Oh yeah.
Come and get it, come and get
I
it.
wanna dance the night away until we see the light of day. Come give me some.
Mucho éxito entre la audiencia, ¿eh?
Welcome, everybody. How are you today? Thank God it's Friday, and we are full of energy in order to start and, well, to receive this last Consejo Técnico webinar, and we are very pleased to have you here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your loyalty in all of these webinars that we have been preparing for you day by day. I am absolutely happy to receive you today. But well, I think I must stop talking because it is now time to introduce to you this very great talk that we have prepared for you. What do we have to know about inclusion in education when we are not specialists? In our classrooms, as teachers, we're responsible for our students' learning and development. Having basic knowledge about the most common learning and personality disorders is important nowadays. In this webinar, we will discuss educational inclusion for all students with and without disabilities, because we all learn in different ways. We will explore some strategies as well as to achieve educational inclusion and therefore to be inclusive teachers. And guess who's here for you today? Let me introduce him to you. You know him very well, Rafael Piñon. Rafael, CELT, PNS, ICELT, and CPE certifications holder, official Cambridge English Speaking Examiner for CAT, PET, FCE, CAE, and BEC. Has led teen teacher trainer and TKT courses as well as Cambridge English, IELTS, and TOEFL preparation courses. As well, Rafael has developed and imparted workshops and lectures concerning several topics, such as phonology, writing process, and coordination management. Rafael has worked for different types of schools as a teacher, teacher trainer, academic supervisor, and as head of academic supervision at the Anglo. Before I hand over the stick to Rafa, I want to remind you that you can feel free to use the chat box to express any comment or question you may have. But well, no more talk from me because you must be eager to get started. And well, Rafa, the stage is all yours. So welcome, Rafa. break a leg.
Okay, so can you listen to me?
Yes, we can listen to you perfectly.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for the introduction, Sheila. And thank you very much, everyone who's listening and watching to this webinar today. I would like to thank you for this opportunity. And on behalf of UDP, University of Dayton Publishing, I am here today in order to share some information with you as well as some ideas that, in my opinion, will help you become, I would say, aware of what inclusive education should be. All right. My expectation is not precisely to make you a specialist in the area. The purpose of this workshop is um, to raise this awareness among all of you. Hopefully, in the audience now or later, if you get to watch this video recorded later, hopefully there are among you um, coordinators or even principals who are thinking on, should I also accept people, in this case students, with different abilities and capabilities in my school? Um, if you are wondering if you should do this or not, I think that's a very good beginning. Later, for you to make this decision, probably the content of this workshop can give you a very clear idea on at least where to start. Uh, I would like to think that some of the information that I will be sharing with you today will help you in order to make decisions, and also for you to have this as a orientation, considering like some do's and some don'ts in this field of inclusive education. All right. So just to start, I would like to pose a few questions to you. And it is true that the result of these questions might be a bit polemic, but we are doing this on purpose, let me tell you, because from the result of these questions, we'll begin, let's say, bringing up this consciousness that I think is necessary among principals or directly the owners of the schools, as well as in teachers. Okay, so the first question goes like this. In your opinion, are all children entitled to being educated? Should all children receive similar education in Mexico? Yes? No? What do you think? I'm allowing a few seconds for you to answer, or at least for you to think about it. I assume that because we all are teachers, or we all have been teachers, um, and even if we are not, but we are the principals of a school or the directors of a school, or the owners of a school, probably the first answer that comes to our mind is, of course, yes, all children should be educated. They should all go to school. And then the following question is, really? All children? I mean, if we consider a child who's on a wheelchair and who needs assistance, even to go to the bathroom, for example, are you ready for that? If you have as a student a boy or girl who cannot listen at all, Are you ready to teach this child? Probably you are thinking, well, no, no, not me, but in some other school. Yeah, but that other school is where? Or you might be thinking, yeah, all children should receive the same education, but I am not ready for that yet. So when we start thinking that way and when we realize about it, then the number of teachers who are really capable and trained in order to do this starts getting reduced. And that's probably one of the reasons why there are not many schools that are considered that are authorized to become inclusive schools. You see, to think of these students with different needs, completely different needs, it's a little bit scary at the beginning. I perfectly understand that. I would also still be a little bit restless on uh, if I would be ready, if I would be capable to actually uh, help one of these kind of children, children with different needs. However, to say I'm not ready should become or should come together with the expression yet. I'm not ready yet, but it doesn't mean that we are not capable. All right. Probably what we need here is to begin with this awareness and then some specific training. All right. So that's the way I wanted to start this presentation today in order to introduce this topic. All right. Now, if you allow me, I need to tell you a couple of things. This information that I will be sharing with you mostly comes from UNESCO report that I found, and here these two facts caught my attention. The first one says that most children, the big majority actually, the big majority of children with some kind of a disability in developing countries, and that of course includes Mexico, the big majority of these children are currently not enrolled in any school. What do you think that's normal? Do you think that is acceptable? Did you have any idea on this? Again, I am allowing some time for you to consider this fact. Most children with disabilities in developing countries are currently not enrolled in school. Now, what does this mean? That apart from the fact that there are lots of children with disabilities, they are not receiving any kind of help. Forget about specialized help, any help at all. So how is it possible for these children then to become a little bit more able? How can these children then acquire some other skill to overcome the disability that they have at the moment? It's definitely depressing, isn't it? And the second fact that I also uh, learned reading this document was this. Out of those children who are registered in any kind of a school, children with disabilities, I mean, the ones that are enrolled in a school are not really learning. And in many cases, it's not because they don't have the capability to learn, not because they don't have the chance, but actually it's because the school might not have the conducive conditions for students to learn, or because teachers are not well prepared, well trained on how to help these children. You see, so the situation for this kind of children is, in my opinion, to say the least, dramatic. All right, and remember, the intention of this presentation is not to help you become those specialists. We are only trying to raise awareness on the fact for you to start making the appropriate decisions in your schools together with the authorities there. Okay? Now, you might be thinking, all right, politicians should be doing something about this. People who know about the topic should take care of it and express their opinions and make the necessary specifications. And you know what? They have already done it. A number of specialists, together with representatives of a lot of countries, have discussed this topic depth and length, in depth and in length, and they have stated it. There are lots of documents that prove that they have spoken about it, that they have made recommendations on the field, that they have uh, tried to help the educational authorities in many countries, and they have even created the necessary, let's say, guidelines for them to consider the training for teachers, the adequation of facilities, and what are the results? Do you know many schools that actually are inclusive, in which children are actually being uh, helped and then educated? Unfortunately, I mean, as for me speaking, I have to tell you, I don't know many. I know only a few. And when I say a few, I can speak to you about, I mean, among all the schools that I've known, because I have worked there, probably 3 or 4 schools. So again, we're trying to raise awareness on this. Okay, when we speak about disabled children, what are we speaking about? We're not only speaking about children, for example, with some kind of uh, assistance. That is, children on a wheelchair or children who are listening some kind of a deaf impairment hearing device. No, no, no. We are speaking about much more than this. We are speaking not only about physical, but also psychological kind of disability. Okay? And that's why I wanted to mention to you a couple of cases. The case number one. It is probable that you remember this character, more than the actor, the character. His name in sitcom is Sheldon Cooper. Sheldon Cooper is a character in a sitcom named The Big Bang Theory. And in this sitcom, he is a genius. He is probably one of the most intelligent people in the world. However, he lacks social abilities. He is not a person who can start up a conversation with a stranger. He is not capable of understanding body language. He doesn't understand sarcasm. He doesn't understand people's jokes, humor in general. He is incapable of uh, accepting or recognizing the moment on when to stop speaking about a certain topic. In general, what I have mentioned about Sheldon Cooper is actually the characteristic symptoms of the Asperger syndrome. Okay. And probably you are thinking, hey, that was an exaggeration. Hey, that cannot happen in real life. Well, to tell you the truth, in Mexico, and that is the information I've got, I don't know about other countries, but at least in Mexico, it is said that there are a lot of people, not only children, but people who have been misdiagnosed. Misdiagnosed. And I'm referring to the fact that there are people, again, not only children, who have suffered, for example, from this syndrome, but they have not been correctly diagnosed, and then they have been labeled as strange or not empathic or not sociable or just introverted, you know, when actually what they had was something different. On the other hand, and this is also quite sad as well, in Mexico, there is an incredible number of children who are under some kind of medical treatment for something that they actually don't need. Uh, this is something that we have probably seen in our schools as well. I'm talking about children who are under certain medications that make them slow, that make them not completely aware, and most of the times sleepy, tired. And in many of these cases, again, these children have been misdiagnosed and actually do not need such medicine. Okay, I am speaking about all of this because I want to introduce you now to a very specific and even local case. First, I would like you to watch and listen the following video. And after this, I will share with you some additional information, okay? Just a second.
With her sight locked on the sky, the stars are the limit for Adara, who believes her destiny is written in her name. My dad surfed a lot and wanted to name me Adara because he saw that star. The omen was fulfilled, and the cosmos became this little girl's passion. Black holes are made of galaxy stars that are exploited. Any object that enters a black hole weighs less, it stretches and turns into matter. Though at first sight, Adara is a 7-year-old who enjoys rollerblading and watching cartoons, tests reveal she has an IQ of 162. She is a gifted child.
Aprendió a leer rápido,
She learned to
matemáticas
read very quickly
a
at
los
3
3
years
años.
old. She is
Y es como
self-taught. She
autodidacta, ¿no?
searches
Pone,
how
¿cómo
to learn
aprender
algebra
álgebra?
on
Y
videos.
pone,
She graduated elementary school at 5 and a half and at 7 from high school. She has started college majoring in industrial engineering.
Yo quiero ser un astronauta.
I want to be an astronaut because I am going to research more on black holes. She also gives conferences, teaches math, is an expert chess player, is already writing her first book, and attended physics classes at the National University.
ahí hizo el curso de ondas gravitacionales.
There she took courses on gravitational waves, observational astronomy, and did a University of Massachusetts course on beautiful patterns that are mathematical patterns. Adar investigated how to reach her dream, a dream that for many in Mexico would seem impossible.
Preguntamos, no hay astrofísica.
Here there was no astrophysics, so I saw on the internet where I could study astrophysics, and Arizona came out.
Y Adara nos puede ayudar
Adara
a
can
todos
help us all to realize
a
that science is
darnos
closer.
cuenta de que
It is
la
not a
ciencia
thing
está
for adult
mucho más cerca
scientists, but it
y
is a
que no es una
children's
cosa
thing too.
de
University of Arizona is a top physics school and ranks as the #1 in planetary sciences. The university has been involved in every NASA mission, and they consider Adara an exceptional candidate.
Entonces nos interesamos mucho porque es un
We are
caso
very
muy
interested as
peculiar
this is a
de una
peculiar
niña
case with an extraordinarily
extraordinariamente talentosa
talented
con mucho
girl with a
potencial.
huge potential. With scholarships from the university and foundations, she could join the University of Arizona next year, becoming their youngest student. In the upcoming months, Adara will be traveling to Tucson to visit the University of Arizona campus and get to know the college community. In Mexico City, Paulina Gomez Bulshiner, UNews.
Okay, so as I was telling you, this is a local case. As far as I could investigate, Adara Perez is actually from Veracruz. That's why she mentioned that her father used to sail a lot. He was a fisherman. Um, but currently, Adara Perez lives in Mexico City in a municipality called Tláhuac. Now, when Adara was in daycare, you know, not even kindergarten, but daycare, um, she was labeled as the weirdo. She was classified as an antisocial person, you know, like not really empathic, not she didn't care for others. In fact, let's say that she was even bullied by her little uh, uh, classmates. Let's call it that way. The teachers in this daycare, in this little school, told the mom that Adara would have some learning problems. Let's call it that way. Learning problems. So they recommended her to take her to some other school because they couldn't do much for her there. Imagine, she was not even 3 years old. Fortunately, her parents were not satisfied with this diagnosis and actually looked for help. And the kind of help they looked for was therapy with a psychologist. And it was this group of psychologists that agreed that the child had definitely not learning problems, but Asperger's syndrome to begin with. And then they continued with the tests, and then they realized that the girl was a genius. It was mentioned here in this video that the girl has an IQ of 162. Maybe the number does not say much to you, but consider this. Both Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking both had an IQ of 160. So this girl actually, if we only take into consideration the intelligence quote, she is more intelligent than Einstein and Hawking themselves. You see? So that is only for you to have an idea on how misdiagnosis can affect people's lives. And then here I would also ask you, among those children, those students that we have had in our classrooms that we have labeled as the problematic, as the careless, as you know, these kind of students could normally have a negative label by their peers or even in some cases, sadly, by ourselves. How many of them actually had a different kind of situation? I'm not saying that they all were geniuses. I am only saying that probably they had a different condition in their minds going on. All right? So when we speak about learning disabilities, we are not only speaking about a child on a wheelchair or a child with some kind of a visual impairment. We should also consider these kind of children. All right? Okay. So for me to continue, I want to ask you something here that, in my opinion, is quite relevant. If you have already accepted children with other learning abilities and with different needs, you should be aware of this. If you are not, if you're in the process, if you're actually thinking whether or not to include this kind of children, for me, this is like the very beginning. Is there any difference in meaning among these three terms: impairment, disability, and handicap? Is there any difference in meaning among these three terms, or are they interchangeable? If you go and Google it, you're cheating. Only as far as you know. Interchangeable or different? And if they are different, what's the difference? Okay. I'm not expecting you to answer this immediately, of course, but in my opinion, it's quite relevant for all teachers, all people involved in the inclusion of students with different needs, to be completely aware on the differences, because they are different, on the differences among these three different concepts. I must tell you that I obtained these definitions again in another document by UNESCO. And these, according to them, are the internationally accepted definitions, although there are some people who may disagree. Okay, I insist. A UNESCO document is my source of information. And then they say that impairment is this temporary or permanent loss or abnormality of a body structure or function. And these can be physiological or psychological. That's what is called an impairment. And a disability is the restriction or inability to perform an activity in the manner, or at least within the range considered to be normal for a human being. Actually, the disability is the result, or can be the result, of an impairment. If I have some visual impairment, that is, if I cannot see from a distance because I am short-sighted, and actually I am, but if I don't have spectacles, glasses, then my impairment might become a disability if I want, for example, to drive a car. You see? So I have an impairment, but if I have this assistance, then I am not disabled. Now, handicap. Handicap is the result of either impairment, disability, or both, which limits or prevents the fulfillment of one or several roles regarded as normal. Okay. I would ask you, do you think that a person who suffers from some kind of an illness, let's say polio, and then obviously had problems in his or her legs, do you think that this person can actually drive a car? Well, this person could drive a car if First of all, he gets some assistance. He's got an impairment, as you can see, a body structure or a temporary or permanent loss of a body structure or abnormality of a body structure, that is the legs. But if this person receives some assistance, some training, and if especially if this person is not told that he can't drive a car ever, but instead of that receives some training and some assistance, the person could very well drive a car. In fact, I know people with this kind of conditions who actually drive cars. Maybe now you are already thinking of someone or you have heard about similar cases. You see? So, by the way, at the moment, supposedly, to use this word handicapped can result offensive for some people. So careful at the moment you use this word, please. Okay. One more time. You are considering the inclusion of children with different needs and with different learning abilities, or you are already doing it. Are you doing it in the right way? If so, congratulations. Probably at the end of the session, you can add some extra comments in the chat for you to share about your successful experience. That would help and enrich this session and the participants quite a lot. If the answer is no, then I insist. Where should I start? What's a good beginning? Let's understand this, first of all. All right? Let's keep it in mind. It is also necessary to keep in mind that if the authorities in your school and then you, the academic staff, receive the necessary training for you to become an inclusive school, you must definitely consider, and it is a must, I carefully selected the word, you must also help the rest of the learning community, that is the rest of the students, you have to help them become aware of these differences, the differences that these new students will represent. It is absolutely indispensable that also your other students get the necessary information. An inclusive school is not only that has the necessary physical adaptations for you to welcome students with different needs. It's not only the building, it's not only the material thing, but also the environment, okay? For children with different needs and children with different abilities, it is absolutely essential to find a conducive environment for them to, let's say, start or continue their education. All right? So that's why it is necessary to mention this topic, which is called the barriers, okay? Barriers to learning, barriers to development, barriers to participation. And probably one of the most, I would say, negative barriers is the one that begins with attitudes, okay? I will speak here to you about certain barriers that are present not only for children with different needs and other learning abilities. No, no, no. There are barriers for everybody. All right. We have to keep that in mind as well, because all children, no matter if they are somehow disabled or not, all children face these kind of barriers, especially in our case as English teachers. If they have to learn a language that is not their mother tongue, in which they are not immersed, Here there is already a barrier. Okay, so here we have to consider, of course, um, what's known as the affective filters, for example. My personality is a bit shy, and now that I'm learning a new language, I don't want to make mistakes, so I better not participate. You know, that is a barrier that is present in all kind of children. Again, I insist, disabled or not. All right. Probably because the content of my books, definitely not UDP's books, but the content of my books or the way in which my teacher is imparting the lessons is not attractive for me. It's not interesting. English class. There will be an obvious lack of motivation there. And again, I insist, this can be a reality for disabled or not disabled children. And probably as a combination of the two previous elements, there will be lack of self-confidence. And thus, there will be a low level of participation. Okay? So these are what we call the personal barriers, and they are existing, they are present in all kind of children. Okay, now imagine that apart from this, there are other types of barriers, yes, for the disabled children. Barriers am I speaking about? The environmental ones. As I tried to exemplify a bit earlier today, if I have some kind of an impairment, as the one that I mentioned, visual impairment, and if I have no access to a doctor, in this case an optometrist or something like that, that can help me solve this problem, then my impairment becomes a disability. So that is to exemplify. So think of that impairment or any kind of an impairment plus no help. Then the problem becomes even worse. Discrimination, and this is what I was speaking to you about before. This word is really difficult to explain somehow, because sometimes when we try to avoid discrimination, we discriminate more. When we tell our students, don't stare at a child who has some kind of a disability, we are isolating the child. And we are preventing other children to probably learn from this child who has this kind of an impairment. So we are segregating them instead of actually linking them. So careful with that. It's very easy to make this discrimination situation even worse if we are not aware of what we're doing, or the way in which we handle this situation. Here comes probably one of the most interesting aspects. How can I teach, for example, a child with Down syndrome English? How can I teach him English if he seems to be out of this world, for example? Are you expecting that child to, at the same time as the rest of your children, to obtain the Flyers Cambridge certification? No, that is not a realistic goal, unless in the spectrum of the Down syndrome, this child were uh, let's say, in the limit of being as let's say, as similar to other children as possible. That is when the syndrome is not that serious. Let me call it that way. Now, I am not telling you that all the children will get specifically the same objectives. Even among our children who we consider to be normal, there are children who prefer or not one subject or another, who excel at one subject but not at another. The same happens with children with different learning abilities and with different needs. I'm not telling you that it is impossible to do, but probably at the same time, that seems to be a little bit more realistic. And in some cases that are more severe, when the syndromes are more severe, when the learning disabilities are more severe, it is true that they will not uh, learn, for example, to write down uh, an essay in English. That's true. But if this child learns to write down, I love you, mom, in English, probably that will be an achievement, the same to be acknowledged and celebrated by both parents and teachers, as if he had obtained the Flyers Cambridge certification, you know. What I'm trying to say is that the the curricula, the teaching approaches, the teaching methods, the objectives for children with different learning abilities must also be adapted. They should be flexible. Now, this doesn't mean that we have to prepare 3 lessons for the same group, or no, we have to be realistic on this and say, if it is already difficult for me to prepare one class for one group, I cannot prepare 2 classes for the same group or 3 classes for the same group because I have children with different special needs. No, we are only trying to adapt what we give them so that they somehow also participate as well. Maybe on some other occasion, we could speak about this concept of differentiated instruction that might lend you a really helpful hand on this. Okay, so the curricula and our teaching methods should actually respond to these students' needs, to their specific conditions. All right. Now, this is what many people have in mind when we speak about being inclusive. Yes, what to do with my school? What to do with my classroom? Should I have an elevator, lift in my school if I'm to accept this kind of children with the other needs? Well, not strictly necessary, but probably, and this is the most important, as I mentioned it before, the environment is probably definitely essential, probably more than an elevator, okay, for you to consider. And then, of course, if I am going to teach you having different objectives for children with other needs and other abilities, the assessment cannot be the same either. Okay. Instead of evaluating, probably just assessing might be the answer, or probably the objectives with these children should also be different. Today, before we conclude this presentation, I would like to share with you a document that can somehow give you a hand on this. All right, different objectives for different people. It seems to be even logical, right? Now, remember that I mentioned before the personal barriers that exist for all children. The ones that I just listed correspond then to children with the special needs and with different learning abilities. Are they all? Sadly, no. In fact, apart from the ones that I will display now, believe me, there are many more. There are many more. For example, if these children also come from an environment at home in which they are the first ones attending school, the conditions are different. Also, if the student is a girl and not a boy, because the conditions are also different. So sadly, there are many more barriers apart from the ones that I am listing. If you take a look at the last one in this list, temperament, probably you have to think of these kind of children that all of a sudden have an outburst of laughter or anger or sadness, and they break up crying, or they have this kind of sudden displays of an emotion when teachers are not trained for reacting to this. And even worse, when students are not aware that this kind of situation can happen, there will be an immediate repulsion. There will be an immediate, let's say, separation that will not help the child who is going through this chapter. So again, that becomes another barrier for the child in an environment in which he cannot be helped or she cannot be helped. Okay, so now that you have that I have mentioned all of these barriers, the idea would be then first to become aware of them, and second, how can I prevent them, right? But I still have one more thing to show you here. Hold on. How to overcome some of these barriers? Well, what I will do is to mention in general some tips that might help you, okay? And again, I insist, this should be like the very beginning. When you conclude this presentation today, you will not be ready to start accepting children with these kind of needs. But at least, and that is my real expectation, you will have a clear idea on when to start, okay? So, first of all, just like in the case of any other child, it's necessary for children with special needs, with different learning abilities, to be able to express emotions. And then we have to be aware that we must give them the necessary time for them to do it, okay? But guess what? This is not only for them. This should be for everybody. And nowadays, it's becoming really, I don't want to say fashionable, but it's becoming acknowledged all over the world to pay special attention to our children's emotions. Thus, paying attention to their emotions in the learning environment becomes critical, especially nowadays after the pandemic and the lockdown and everything. Okay, so that would be like the first tip. The second one, the kind of tasks, the kind of materials, the kind of objectives that we establish with these children should always be graded according to what they can actually do. An open communication channel must be the key between the school and home, okay? There should be a constant flow of communication both ways. Parents should share with the school if they have noticed any change, if something different is going on, for the school to be ready and to have some kind of an action plan in case something happens like that also in the school. And the other way around, you know, the school should also inform parents on positive and negative changes that they observe, because parents must, for example, reinforce some kind of a behavior. They should acknowledge it, and they should be ready again also in order to react to these possible changes. Okay, so that is something that probably already exists with some children, but with this one specifically, the ones who have different needs and other learning abilities, is definitely a must. It's critical. All right. Praise your students. That seems to be more than obvious. I mean, don't we all do it? However, what we and the real tip here is praise your students with other learning abilities while you're also praising the rest of the class. If having a favorite student has always been a negative point in any kind of a teaching environment, in this case, we can contribute to discrimination if we don't pay attention. If we always praise this child with other needs, with other learning abilities, if we only praise that child, that will create some kind of a negative feeling towards him, you know? So let's be careful on that. Attentive. All children should be treated the same, even if they have other learning abilities, other or different needs. Okay? What I mentioned before about the evaluation should be included here. And together with parents, and probably even together with the treating doctors, the ones that are looking after this child, the ones that are sending the prescriptions, you know, the ones that are offering them therapy, that these doctors plus parents and yourselves, and talking about the school, should have an individual education plan for the child. Okay, that's why I was telling you it's not strictly necessary to prepare a second lesson plan for the same group. No, but the child must have an individual education plan, especially as I mentioned it before, when the impairment is severe. All right. Now, this is important. The layout. The distribution, for example, even the what we call the seating arrangements, you know, should also be considered quite carefully. Let me give an example. Let's suppose that among your students, there is a child who is practically deaf. Okay, he has a hearing impairment. Is it important? Is it relevant the way in which they sit in the classroom? The answer may depend on what this child can do or can't do. But normally, people with hearing impairment learn to interpret body language. In many cases, they can read your lips. In many cases, they interpret facial expressions. Consequently, it is recommended for a case like this to have what we call a U formation or a horseshoe formation, for the child to have the opportunity to directly look practically at everyone when they speak. so that the child can see their faces, their body language, and even probably read their lips. So as you can see, yes, it is necessary to consider this at the moment that we arrange chairs in our classrooms, for example. All right. Where can you find additional information on this? I know that this question is already there. So again, before I finish the presentation, we will share with you this link. So just allow me to finish, and we will share some material that, in my opinion, will be really, really important for you. Okay. And probably I will not mention this enough times. It's necessary to be constantly repeating it. In terms of equity, all children should be treated the same. Not only the ones with different needs or with other learning abilities, all children should be treated the same. In that way, we are preventing segregation, discrimination, or a negative learning environment. All right? Okay. What else can I share with you today? This can be part of this individual learning plan. I insist, depending on the severity of a syndrome or the impairment, in some cases it's necessary to assess, for example, how confident the child looks in a specific period of time. And then it's necessary to report to the parents and probably even to the doctors of those children if they have appeared to be more cautious in class or more empathic lately. It is a report on their personality and their cooperation and their attentiveness, and so that can be a way to assess our students who have, I insist, severe learning problems, depending on their syndromes or whatever. Okay, I did not invent this list. It is part of a document that I will be sharing with you by the end of the session. I only wanted to exemplify how we can do it. And this can very well work in an English class or in a Spanish class, whatever. Okay? Then, we are very near from actually concluding our session, but I didn't want to finish without mentioning this. As far as you know, people who have to use wheelchair need a ramp, right? So based on some of the information that I've given you, making use of your own experience, your own knowledge, according to what you have lived, and also being a little bit logical with a little bit of common sense, let me ask you, as far as you know, what is the best ramp? What is the best ramp? I will allow a couple of seconds for you to think of this. What is the best ramp? You got it? No? Yes? You have an idea? Maybe you are already thinking of angles, right? The angles that will establish the elevation of the ramp. All of them could be really good answers. For me, and this is the piece of information or the piece of advice that I want to share with you, the best ramp of all, the best, is the one that doesn't exist. What do you mean? Yeah, If there is no ramp, that's the best, because it means that all people, especially our students, all children, no matter if they are somehow impaired or not, can go anywhere without any restriction. If anyway, if anyway, a ramp is necessary in my school, please take this into consideration then. I insist, the best ramp is the one that doesn't exist, because the flat surface is definitely the most appropriate. After this, look at these degrees. Let's say the inclination that will establish the elevation. Appropriate, acceptable, only with assistance. And what are you thinking of? Here, I would like to share with you, I would say, a sad experience. Very recently, I visited a school in Veracruz. I don't want to say more. I will not mention the name. In this school, they have probably they had the best intentions. Probably they wanted to actually accept, welcome children on wheelchairs. But why do I say that this is a sad situation? Because obviously they didn't have this piece of information, or they didn't have enough resources so as to do something else. But what they did was to transform the stairs into ramps, just like that. So instead of having the steps, they covered the surface here, and that became a ramp. Probably those ramps would be amazing for skateboarders, you know, but definitely not for a person on a wheelchair. I mean, the angle was, I don't know, practically 45 degrees. Forget about 12. It was something that even for people simply walking could become really dangerous. So I insist, probably they had the best intentions, but then they transformed normal stairs into a hazard, a real risk for everybody. Speaking on that, I will show you a ramp that seems to be uh, good enough for a person in a wheelchair, and that is a question: who is this ramp for? Who should use this ramp? Even though the answer seems to be obvious, and then we can think on, well, this ramp is for children who are disabled, who are on a wheelchair, but also maybe for senior citizens, and maybe for people walking on crutches, or people who have to use a cane. Or the answer should be, this ramp should be used by anyone. When we start making restrictions such as this bathroom is only for people on wheelchairs, this ramp is only for people on wheelchairs, we are segregating there. When this concept becomes clear in our mind, more than clear, logical, I would say that you have taken the first initial necessary steps so as to start accepting people with different needs and with other learning abilities. Because then you'll be aware of the fact that everybody should be treated the same. even if we have some kind of an impairment or not. And to conclude my presentation today, I want to share with you another video. In this video, I think we can see the evidence of a really successful inclusive school, a really successful inclusion program, and a lot of people who are definitely completely aware of differences and are respectful of this and are definitely empathic. Oh, sorry. Yes, the document. The good thing is that I included here in the presentation. Sorry. ILFE, ILFE. These are the initials for the document that I've been describing to you, which is actually a toolkit. This was created by the UNESCO again, and ILFE or ILFE stands for Inclusive Learning Friendly Environments. And as I mentioned it before, it is a toolkit. Whatever you want to know, and for you to be completely aware of the needs, the modifications, the adaptations, the training that all the personnel, this also includes, for example, janitors, in some cases nannies, in some cases even the doorman, what they should be aware of when you welcome disabled students. All of that information, you can find it in this document. Okay, it's very easy for you to go to internet and to Google UNESCO ILFE, and there you can even download this document. It's really extensive, and in my opinion, that's probably the best, because the more information we can obtain on this field, I think we will have more certainty on what we are doing and if what we are doing is right or not. Okay? So now the video that I was speaking to you about, and I was telling you, here we can see a whole community being not only respectful, but also empathic. As you can see here, we have a child who is partially impaired, who probably suffers from also some kind of a syndrome. But first of all, he was accepted in the school, not only in the school, but also in the physical education class. And as I mentioned this before, it is not expected from this child to become an athlete. He's not the next Stephen Curry or Michael Jordan, but it is probable that with the assistance, with the support that he received in this school, this child can actually run, as you could see it, and he runs confidently, and people are not next to him, looking after him for him not to fall down. I mean, if you have the need to make a decision on whether or not to allow a child with these conditions to participate in this, what we call the contact sports, probably you would say no. but then we will be somehow preventing their full development and their full capabilities. And it doesn't mean, I insist, that he will achieve the same results as other children will, even if in the same class. But for sure, this child will be doing much more than if we put him in some kind of a plastic bubble and try to protect him from everything or anything. At the same time, we saw the classmates and even the opposite team were respectful and empathic of the conditions of this child. You see, I don't know. There is a very powerful message, according to me, of course, in this video. That's why I wanted to share it with you. That's why I selected it to be the colophon in this presentation. And with this, I only have to now allow you to send us any kind of a question. If not now, especially if you watch this video later, if there is any kind of a comment you want to make, if there is any contribution that you would like to also add, please do it in the comments, or if necessary, later on, you can also send us an email, and we'll be really happy to read your questions, your comments, your contributions. As for me, I want to thank you now for your time and attention to this presentation. And on behalf of UDP, my name is Rafael Piñon. Thank you very much for your attention. Till next time.
Thank you very much, Rafa, for this great, valuable talk. It was not only full of new learnings and full of tips and ideas, but also I'm pretty sure that it made more than one of us reflect about this topic and then think carefully and thoroughly about this. So, well, thank you to the audience also for being here, for your persistence all along these sessions, and also, of course, for your very valuable attendance. And I see that we start already having some comments that I would like to read, and a couple of questions that I would like to read to you, Rafa. First of all, I want to read a comment that Magdalena Marquez wrote in the middle of the session. She says, at her school, they have a visually impaired teenager. And well, she thinks that they need to be trained to help him so that he can have a better learning experience. And accompanied to this comment, she also wrote, is there any course that you recommend to help and train teachers in this topic?
Yeah, thank you very much for the questions and for the participation. I would say that the initial steps are included in the ILFE, in this document, especially when you are not aware at all on how to start, what to do. That will give you a lot of certainty. Okay, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, when we face the possibility of having a student like this in our classrooms, at the very beginning, we can also get afraid. What is new, what is unknown, always represents a source of fear for us. I understand that. What do we need? We need information. We need, as you very well say it, some kind of training. Yes, absolutely. Are there some specific foundations and organizations that can help you on this? For sure. But in my opinion, all the information available in this document, the ILFE, and that you can download, can give you a very clear perspective on where you are, because probably you already have certain elements that you may exploit now, or it will tell you what you still need. Okay, so especially to begin with, I would very much recommend the reading of this document.
Thank you very much, Rafa. And
Anytime.
I have other two comments over here. One by Magdalena Marquez again. She wrote, although some students may be physically or visually challenged or any other kind of condition, they can all learn if they are in an appropriate learning environment, which includes the place, the teacher, and any other resource that is needed.
I agree on that, definitely. And I insist, they will not all get the same results, but nobody does. I mean, children in the same, not only in the same school, in the same family, obtain different academic grades and they have completely different performance. We are never the same. So why should we expect that children with other learning abilities or with some impairment will or should do the same? Of course not. It's not realistic. Okay. At a different level, they can also learn. At a different level, they can also, or they will also be able to do things that without these conducive educational situations, they wouldn't be able to. So yeah, I agree.
Thank you very much. And well, she thanks you a lot and she says that she loved the topic and all your insights. She found it like really, really useful.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. And I have another comment by Sabdiel Valencia. And this says, literally, just be concerned of our students. So yeah, definitely, we have to be concerned about them.
Of all of them.
Exactly. Well, Rafa, again, on behalf of SM and UDP, we are very thankful for your participation. It was really enriching and well, it definitely opened new perspectives for us to think on and well, to start figuring out ways to do a better job on a regular basis. So thank you very much, Rafa. It was a great pleasure. Thank you. And well, please don't go because we still need to know about your comments. Right now, I am sharing with you the satisfaction survey. We would really, really like to know about your views. Of course, because, well, we are concerned about what you think of everything that we prepared for you. And because also we care a lot about improving and giving you and providing you with better services and with talks that could really help you and benefit you. So there is the QR code. And I also shared with you this same satisfaction survey through a link in the chat. So you can either scan the QR code or you can also click on the link so that you can have access to this survey and you can please complete it. So well, once again, thank you very much for being here. This is the last Consejo Técnico webinar of this year, but we will be with you once more the coming school year. And it is important to mention that we will not only have one webinar, but three, one specially prepared for preschoolers, another one specially prepared for primary school, and one more for junior high school and high school teachers. So depending on our social networks, remember that you can follow us in Facebook and in Instagram. We have special information, tips, tricks, knowledge to refresh, new things to learn about day by day. So please join us there. We will be very happy to see you there. Well, thank you very much once more. Enjoy this great and beautiful Friday. And well, I don't want to say goodbye, but see you soon. Thank you.